Hello everyone, Merb here. This is a difficult and risky video for me to do. I hope it doesn't get me into trouble. As you all know, I don't script my videos. I do all these in one take. I just talk about things. And I hope I say this in the right way because this topic is very important. Stamina and gold recoveries in Pisces Cup. And this is directly dealing with other content creators. There's just been a lot of guidance on how much stamina you need, how many gold recoveries you need, what do you need to survive this CM? And I'm not going to beat around the bush. This is directly going to be talking about the CM guide, not because it's the only guidance that's been out there, but it's one, the most recent, and two, it's possibly the most well seen. So before I begin, I need to say that do not slander this man Seriru. He's not wrong, first of all. Secondly, he's a very incredible resource to this community. Having played JP, having played this game for probably 5 years at this point, I think their 5th anniversary now, that's a level of expertise that I don't have because I am going through this the first time. I do have a basis in mathematics a little bit with my engineering degree, but that does not even compare to what he is able to do through his lived experience. And any slander towards his name is unacceptable. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. We are talking about specifically one aspect of the CM guide, which is the recommendation of 2 gold recoveries, 1173 plus 510 was his example, and a side inherit, because 2 gold recoveries are not enough, 3 are required. And like I said before, he is correct. Yes, the required stamina for this CM, if you put it in the calculator, is 1657. And if you have 2 gold recoveries, that lowers it down to about 1075. So if you think about it, if you have everything against you, you're rushed, you are against debuffs and stuff like that, yeah, 1150 plus 2.5 gold recoveries is completely correct. This was calculated with 500 guts on Frontrunner, if you are wondering. I also will attest that I'm not a Frontrunner player, and I know that spot struggle also contributes to this. So this is possibly more from a late surger and end closer point of view because we don't have to deal with that. But there's some things that for you to learn, and I will say also that I've done this on a Kittison Black, and in theory it does work as well, and it does seem to be working in the room matches as well. I think that's all the disclaimers I need. But the purpose and the point behind this suggestion with 2 gold recoveries, and it's correct, is that 2 gold recoveries does not proc every time. So to be fully safe, you need to have 3 recoveries. I'm not going to say, you can see it's gold recoveries, but 3 recoveries so that 2 of them proc and get you there in those situations. The thing is that those proc 95% of the time. Let's say 700 wood I think is reasonable. 2 gold recoveries still work 76% of the time. Okay? So when you load up in the match, 1 out of every 4 of your runs, if you require 2 gold recoveries to finish the game, or 2 recoveries, any 2 skills with 700 wit, you have basically a 1 in 4 chance of your run not surviving, right? My original suggestion was the bare minimum stats of 1,000 stamina plus 2 gold recoveries. And I will quote this directly from what I said in the original. The best thing that you can do once you meet your minimum stats, because my guides are based off of just people trying to get into Champ Me as best as possible, and not everyone has ridiculously good decks. The first and best thing you should do is get 100 to 150 bonus stamina. And there's a specific reason for that they will go through later. So you can consider 1,000 stamina, 2 gold recoveries. You could say 1150, 2 gold recoveries. I think that's just fine, and I maintain that original suggestion. This 1600, I just don't think is reasonable, and it doesn't translate well to real matches, because if you actually go and look in your room matches, even very, very greedy Umas still seem to just hit and live. And the problem is that if you maintain 100% safety and someone else in the other 2 groups decides I'm going to be greedy, the odds is that 1 out of those other 6 Umas are going to hit and survive at the same time, and yours may hit, but it's not going to hit as hard. And that's the problem, is that you were fighting 6 other Umas. So if you are playing it safe and they are playing it greedy, they have 6 chances to beat you. And that's going to happen a bunch. And that is why critical skills matter more than 100% safety and 100% spurt rate. We're not talking survival, it's always spurt rate, and I'll go through that. Just remember, like I said, spurt rate. We're not talking about survival because of the downhill. The downhill in the late part of the race is 400 bonus stamina. This does multiple things. First of all, if you spurt, if the game calculates you have enough, you will survive. It's not a maybe survive. It doesn't really matter how many debuffs you have. Like how many debuffs hit at this point. The downhill can save up to 400 effective stamina unless you are super unlucky, and you get hit by a ton of debuffs at the same time. You need over basically 200 effective stamina to be removed from you after the spurt calculation, which is just not realistic. So if you spurt, you survive. It's kind of as simple as that. At the very worst, it calculates it slightly wrong and you peter off at the very end, but I have seen that once in like the 200 room matches that I've done so far. There's a bunch of things that I think make this not translate into my room matches, because my room matches, even my greedy Umas, are surviving quite a bit. The first thing is this calculation, I'm almost certain, includes the rush condition. Something very frustrating that happened to all the emulators at the same time is they removed the checkbox for rushed and they just sort of built it into the equation. And the thing is with rushed is that even at very low wit, it just doesn't happen very often. It's 1 in 5 at like 0 wit, like basically 100 wit, let's say. So realistically, at the wit levels we have now between 600 and 900, it's only happening about 12% of the time, right? So it's something that's being incorporated into these stamina calculations that just isn't happening very much of the time. To put some math behind it, 1 stamina, I'm just going to include the late surgery calculation because it's simpler, because it's 1-to-1. A stamina gives 0.8 HP times the modifier, right? So pace chasers, it requires more stamina for the same amount of HP. Late surgers are exact, and then basically end closes are pretty much the same thing. If you're rushed, you have a 1.6 times HP drain over the course of time of the rush. So every 3 seconds, you have a 55% chance to leave rushed, which means you basically have 60 HP drain times 0.6. So you have about 36 HP extra that's drained. So about 45 effective stamina is removed from you when you get rushed. So 12% of the time, let's say, because 12.33 over the 600 wit, which I think is a low estimate of what we're getting. It's around 600 to 800 wit on a free-to-play build. We lose about 45 stamina immediately out of the calculation from what we've done before. And if the 6% of the time that we get, I call catastrophically rushed, which just means we've been so unlucky that we get rushed and then we get rushed again, basically, because it's a 55% chance at that point, we lose 90 stamina, and this technically goes on infinitely, but the odds get lower and lower and lower percent that you just get rushed. And let's be honest, if you're in rushed for 12 seconds, I think you're just losing no matter what you do, because you're basically, imagine you're in spot struggle for like half the race. Like that, you're not surviving that no matter what you do. The second thing is that the last perk calculation technically also calculates up to 60 meters before the goal line. This is not too much, but technically it means that in this map it's 3% less stamina calculated than required, right? It doesn't take into account the acceleration time as well, which means, again, this puts this towards the, if you are spurting, you are also surviving, right? So all these little things, they're very small, but I think they do add up, and that's why we're seeing in room matches just like people living, okay? The biggest thing that I talked about in the original video that I think is grossly underreported is the effect of this downhill. This downhill being like 400 meters means that you save on average about 147 stamina with, I think this was 600 wit, so it's even more if you don't. But you can't count on it, of course. You can save 0 stamina, you can save 280 stamina. It all depends on how lucky you are in the wit, and you can utilize this. So my original suggestion, what I put in as my suggestion, I put in a debuff as being 75 stamina and a rushed as being a plus 70 stamina, which is, looking back, rushed is closer to a 45 rather than a 70, I think. It's the expected value may be 70, but the odds that you're in there, you may not even want to count it, and you may just say, if I'm rushed, I'm dead. And that's the basis of this, is that, hey, if you're rushed and you get unlucky with your recoveries, maybe that's the situation you have to sacrifice, because we can't all build perfect Umas. And when you start adding these situations that are catastrophic into each other that are required to reach these high levels of stamina to make the effectiveness of the additional gold recovery or the additional last white recovery, the percentages just go way down. You have a 6% chance of being catastrophically rushed, and let's say you have a debuffer in 40% of your lobbies that actually hits. We'll talk about that. All of a sudden, we're only in 2.72% of runs, which is like 2 runs out of your 80, right? It's not great. So like this isn't going to happen very often, and we're sacrificing the other 78 runs at this point. Let's talk about debuffs, because the 40%, let's say, hey, we're going to get a debuffer in every single one of our lobby, because no matter what we do, first of all, we're not seeing them in room matches, but as we know, room matches are not representative of actual gameplay, because a lot of people are, I don't want to say lazy, but they are unable to make 3 aces. So what do? You boost your aces with debuffers, okay? So the debuff percentage I have as 40% of lobbies, which I think is a high estimate, but even though I haven't seen like any of them in room matches, I think it's very reasonable to say that there's going to be like 20, 30%. But in those 40% even, late race debuffs simply just basically do nothing because of this downhill. Because, like I said, even though recoveries recalculate your late race spurt speed, right? Debuffs do not. They do not trigger a recalculation. So once you've already spurted, you don't really care, because the debuff's going to push you down, and 9 times out of 10, like 95 times out of 100, the downhill is going to be enough to absorb that debuff. This is like unique to this track because of how long this downhill is in the late race. Okay? The other thing is that this is long, not medium, so really the only real ones we have to worry about are rice shower in the fronts, right? So that affects the fronts, but not really the backs as much. And then Stamina Siphon, which is on Man Cafe, on a couple other things, and on the card. Even the Stamina Siphon's only a minus 0.1, which is less than a white recovery. That may have been the white version, but still, it's still 0.3. It should be a 0.01. I think it's 0.01. Even if it's not, the theory still comes that requires the back half. It requires your Uma to be in front of them in that point. And for your front runner players, if everyone's in front of this Uma because it's a sacrificial debuffer, right? That means it's going to hit the end closers and it's going to hit the late surgers and the pace chasers. By the time you're in the first position as a front runner, there's going to be 5 Umas that are not theirs at that point. So one horse still survives in the front, which is why the skill isn't the most effective, because it still doesn't hit the best horse in the front, the best front runner, right? So you have the people running it. You have the fact that Stamina Siphon can just whiff. It is a wit check still, right? It requires some specific situations. Your Uma can just dodge it if it's just doing this properly, and it can still survive when it does. So my suggestion has not changed. If you're able to, get 1100 to 1150, a stamina, 1 gold recovery, 1 white recovery. If you can get more than this, perfectly fine. It'll only increase your consistency. Use the downhill to save bad runs. The reason is that you then unlock the 1 of 2 gold recoveries. So imagine the situation where you need either 1 gold recovery or your white recovery and some luck to survive. You're now in the realm of 95+%. You are better than just running 2 of 3 gold recoveries without even thinking about what's going on, because 1 of 2 recoveries is better than 2 of 3 gold recoveries. I don't know why I put that slide there. You have to think about your success scenarios when you're doing this, right? So with 1150, a gold recovery and a white recovery, your winning scenarios are you don't get any debuffers, right? You don't get rushed at all. At this point, with 1100 stamina, right, 1 white will spurt you, 1 gold recovery will spurt you on its own, right? That happens half the time, let's say. We're assuming 40% of the time there is a debuffer. It could be more, it could be less. You could redo all this math if you want to. At this point of time, you have a 99% chance, right, of one or the other proccing. 60% of the time, there's not going to be a debuffer. You're not going to get rushed at 88% of the time. So 52% of the time, you're fine. Half the races, you're going to survive already just from this. At this point, imagine if you get debuffed or you're rushed. You know, you get hit by a stamina siphon or you get rushed. Well, you need both of them to proc at this point. So at this point, you are banking on the fact that in the situation where I am rushed or debuffed, I now need both my recoveries. And even in this, there's a little bit more math because you basically have the two situations where you're debuffed, you are debuffed and not rushed, or you are rushed and not debuffed, or you are debuffed and not rushed, but not both. And in this situation, you require both of them. So now you're at the 2 gold recoveries, which is at 76% at this point. So you do this and you add an additional 32% success. Your next one is that, hey, let's add in the downhill. So imagine if you're debuffed or rushed, you hit your gold recovery and you have a favorable downhill. You do this, and these are the odds for that. Your favorable downhill, like we said in the previous video, is like 42. I'm saying favorable downhill is, let's say you hit 3/4 of the downhill. Let's say it's roughly 25%. It's a little bit more than that because of the way dice rolls are, but 25% for simplicity. 42% of the time for the fact if you're debuffed or not, and you get 9.2% added. And then we have, of course, you hit your gold recovery, you hit your rive recovery, and you hit a favorable downhill, and you're double debuffed, or you're rushed and you're debuffed at the same time. In the specific situation, there is the still chance that you get a favorable downhill, green gold recovery, a white recovery, and you still survive, and this still adds another 0.9%. So if you add all these success chances up, you have a total success chance still of 94.1% just from this designation right here. Okay, and that 5.9% is the situations where you have more than 2 debuffers, or you have 2 debuffers and your gold or white miss, you have an unfavorable downhill and a rushed, or some combination of 3 or more of these things. And what we call that in the business is unlucky. And you can get that additional recovery, and it's good to get it if you're able to without sacrificing other things to save this another 6% on the Summa. But for the most of us, we're unable to do all of this at the same time. There's just too much stuff in this champions meeting to do so. And the thing is you should look at, and you should run at least a couple room matches, because you can still see that your Umas that are maybe more greedy than you think can still work a lot. Like it's crazy. Like 3 out of 4 times, 4 out of 5 times, 9 out of 10 times, your Uma, you will see straight away spurt proc. You will see your Uma visibly get faster when it happens, and you may see every once in a while them not spurt on time. And that's a way of getting visual feedback to you to say, hey, is this Uma risky or not? And really, the thing is that if you're running it greedy, you can go and fight against these ridiculously made Umas that are just better than you because they have better cards or they hit harder than you. Okay, so you're kind of throwing your hat in the ring for the situations that you're fighting the better Uma, which is going to happen more often than the times that you die. As reference, a little spoiler, this is the gold chip that I say is a little greedy. It has 970 plus 60 is like 1030, and has 2 gold recoveries and Radiant Star. This was not actually a Radiant Star. If you can see, the Radiant Star was procced later right here. So this was just the 2 gold recoveries happening to hit, and that was enough. It did get hit with a Stamina Eater debuff as well, so a white buff, and it still survived. It still spurted on time, and it got a length behind a UG2. So this is the reason why I can't get behind 2 GRs and 1 Inherit. It's that, like, where are you getting these 2 gold recoveries on anything besides, like, front runners and possibly gold chip, right? Like, Lates and Pacers are gold recoveries. Like, our Pace Chasers have a couple gold recoveries, but our stamina is so freaking high that it's, like, it's ridiculous. Late Surgers, we have Lion Weight, which has its own problems. All the recoveries besides Corner Adept or Swinging Maestro have issues with reliability. So even though we're getting this 20% additional help, right, this 20% additional consistency, really we're not getting to the full point because we have the failure chance that cooldown chooses the last straight, and at that point, like the last straight, we haven't spurted. So 1 out of every 3 times, cooldown and Bofa just miss anyways. So we're not even getting the full 20%. We're getting like 13% of reliability. Stamina Eater requires the back half. Lion Weight requires in the back half. So if you get a good Uma stand proc, they just don't proc. It's the same thing with Tyshan's recovery as well. It can just fail. Most of the free-to-play cards are 50-50. So if you're a free-to-play player and you're trying to get 2 recoveries from free-to-play cards, you're not. It's a 1 out of every 4 that you just get your recoveries on time. And I'm here to say that, hey, if you get 1 gold recovery and 1 white recovery, it usually is just fine as well. That's what I'm trying to say here. We're already struggling with parents, so getting the Inherit and getting a heal Inherits is just another thing we're adding to it that's going to remove the number of stars required for Uma Stand, for Straightaway Spurt, for our gold chips, for just good blues and good pings to give us long S more often. We're frustrating ourselves trying to high roll everything rather than just focusing on the things that really matter and just compensating and accepting a little bit of risk, okay? The The second gold recovery, the only other thing I'll say about the video too is that, hey, just get the second gold recovery from a character. The reason why I don't like this is it just invalidates like 2/3 of the roster. And I know people have Oshis, and I do want to say this, like I always say, every character can be run in a champions meeting. No character is useless just because they don't have a gold recovery. This video was not saying that. It's saying that these characters are advantaged because they have the second gold recovery. But hey, I'm a winning ticket player. I don't have a gold recovery in my kit. So where do I get this legendary secondary recovery from? Am I going to run Zeno Rob Roy speed and get a 0% race bonus card? Or am I just going to try to get some white recoveries to supplement my gold recovery and then fail that 5 to 10% of the time? Okay? That's what I'm trying to say. You're also sacrificing those skill points by getting golds. You're usually sacrificing at least some supplementary skills. And they're not normally, and you can use this analysis to make your determination whether you want consistency or high roll potential, but you're losing another gold by getting a gold recovery plus a inherit. You have like 300 skill points you're burning there. That could be an IBAM. That could be a 1.14 lengths. It could be an ECS, which is you're not double circling every single straights and corners, right? So that's another 0.6 lengths there. Feature act could be a win QED. It could be another inherit that you choose because you don't have a heal inherit. You're choosing a late race speed option, which helps you with other forms of consistency as a late surger, because late surgers need to be in the back half of the pack and go to the front. There's just so many situations that this CM causes you to think about that you could you give yourself consistency, but then when you hit, you still don't beat these better Umas. And this is what I'm trying to do, is throw your hat in the ring for it. So my true guidance is that if you want to build like this, that's perfectly fine, but try not to build all three of your Umas like this. Build a greedy Uma, like this gold ship I have, where it's like, hey, if it hits both gold recoveries, it's perfectly fine. And I have a ton of late race on that character. And that's why it's so strong, is that it has Uma stand, it has straightaway spurt, and it has late race. And it has, of course, gold ship ult, which is just all the mid race you ever need. So I have a Uma that if it hits, it just has a very high chance of winning. Okay? It was a link behind a UG2, which is crazy. It was like 1200, 1200, 1200, 700, 1200. I have no idea how they hit that hard. Build a normal Uma, completely normal Uma that may be in the middle. It's like the paper bag cardboard tank theory. And then if you want to build one, not 100% required, but it's a good idea still. Build that tank Uma that's there for the times where you have like 3 to 4 debuffers. Again, if you're running debuffers, this is where your question really comes in, is that you're sacrificing a slot for a debuffer. Maybe you build a tank and a greedy Uma. If you're running double debuffer, where's that balance where you're going to sacrifice that 10% of the time that your one ace is going to hit, that 20% of the time? Or are you going to accept that sometimes even if you hit, you're not going to be good enough? I think the debuffers have more of an issue than we do with 3 aces, because if we have 3 aces, the odds of us having at least 2 aces hit is still 85% of the time if we have 76% at 700 wit. So even with the 2 gold recoveries proccing, the odds of 0 of them proccing is only 1%, because you have the 24%, which is the 1 minus 75.9%. You raise it to the third power because there's 3 times that needs to hit. You only have a 1.4% chance of it happening. That may happen once out of 81 times, or if you're me, 5 times. But hey, I'm unlucky. P of 1s, which means that, hey, a situation where only one of them hits and 2 of them miss, only happens when you have 1 that hits and 2 misses, right? And there's 3 combinations that it can do. Uma A, Uma B, Uma C. You have the 75.9% chance of that hitting and the 2 that don't hit, and that you need exactly this happening times 3 for 13.4%. So if you add those together, it's about 14.8% chance of you missing, and only having, and 99% of the time you have at least one Uma that's throwing your hat in the ring. And if your Umas are strong enough, that one Uma has, let's say it's a 50-50 chance of winning, you're going to win half the time there. Let's say 1 out of every 3, you win a 33% of the time, right? If your Umas are strong enough and just better, you still have a good chance with the singular Uma ace. But even if you just want 2 Umas in the ring at all times, you still have an 85% chance of that happening if you go greedy on all 3 of them with 2 gold recoveries and nothing else, let's say. Or just a gold recovery and a white recovery, 2 skills that need to proc, right? Another thing to think about, and I didn't think about this originally, Glittering Star has a really, really funny thing it does. When a late race recovery hits, it recalculates your stamina. So you can spurt when this happens. The other thing that it is, this is a 0.35 recovery. Sometimes that's enough to get there with a different gold recovery as well. So in addition to gold, white, plus glittering star or radiant star, the thing you have to think about is, and this is, I guess it's technically conditional probability, but you're trying to increase your high rolls. So what time does glittering star really help you, right? Or radiant star, I guess, is what most people will buy. If you're on a late surger, it's a super useful skill because you need things to hit. And on your left is a gambling XL. This is a gambling XL. It hits every 1 out of 6 times. But when it hits, it's not only a recovery that causes you to recalculate your spurt, but it's acceleration, which means if this hits plus on your left, let's say, you have the situation in which you have a chance of winning, for sure. And then you have enough stamina at that point too. So in the situations where you're going to win, you will spurt. If it misses, you may or may not spurt, but who cares, right? Your high roll potential is in the situation where you will also spurt because this is both a recovery and acceleration. So as a secondary acceleration, this is an incredible skill for those Umas that are greedy because, you need a secondary cell with on your left, right? And if this is the one you're using, I think I made my point. It makes your highs high and your lowers lower, but we don't care about whether or not the lowers lower because if the lowers are mid, our mid rolls aren't winning, right? So let's boost our high rolls to the point at which they can win the race, right? Especially on our Oshis. So to say this, I'll say this one more time. Every single Uma creator, me, Seriru, any other one that you've seen, small, big, we all have our own separate strengths, weaknesses, and more importantly, perspectives. And this is what I've been trying to get everyone to learn throughout all my videos because this is the most important thing that transcends everything in Uma Musume, not just like this game, but in real life. Form your own opinions. This is critical thinking. I have my perspective. I mostly play late surges and end closers. I also have a somewhat math background. I haven't played Japan. I am purely a global player. I have my strengths and weaknesses. I have my perspective I'm taking this game from. Seriru is doing the same thing from the Japanese point of view with a wealth of information. And from a position where now they're in a point of the game where they can just grab all these skills too. So thinking back, it may be a little difficult to think that, hey, it's really hard to get to this point. And that's no fault to him, right? We all have our different perspectives. So think about it. Take his perspective. Take my perspective. Take every single content creator that you have watched and your answer for your risk tolerance, for the way that you want to play this game, for the characters that you want to play is somewhere that encapsulates all the information that you've received. Okay? That's the important thing. And this happens in every phase of life. Like you have a bunch of wealth of information coming in at all points of your life, in your job, in your school, in your college. It's just what you use with that information because that is what's important, is that you need to form your reality. Again, this isn't a call-out video. Seriru is correct. It's completely mathematically correct that you need that much stuff, right? It's just I don't find it realistic that the average player that's in my situation can get 100% like safe. Like we need a little bit of risk to fight against these better Umas that have more skills than us because we don't have the luxury of being able to get everything we need in every single video unless we get lucky and hit. And that happens. And that's perfectly fine. If you have 2 gold recoveries, all your skills, you think that you have a great Uma that's going to be able to compete. And then you have the option of increasing your consistency at that point. Go for it. Take it. I'm just here looking at my Umas. And I know everyone's in the situation where we have that Uma that's like just borderline stamina. But it's so good. Like it's our only long-ass Uma stan Uma. And the only thing that's wrong with it is, hey, we're missing 100 stamina. We're missing 50 stamina. What does that affect us? It removes 20% consistency. What's that risk level? Please be civil. Do not go anywhere. Like I said, if I see anything about this, I'm going to at least shut it down the best that I can. Okay? Obviously, every person has their own thoughts. Every person is their own person. But as far from a community perspective, this is the time for us to be civil. I really enjoyed what Seriru does. Like I said, Seriru is correct. I know I'm just a small content creator with his own opinion, right? I'm not any more right than Seriru is. So thank you for adding this perspective to your wealth of information. So appreciate your time. I'm looking forward to this champ meeting. This has been a unique series of circumstances, a unique set of challenges that have been ridiculous because this is the first time we've been doing this on such short notice. So take care, everyone. Good luck in your champions meetings. Burb out.